Okay, I think we can start now. 6:30. I'd like to welcome here everyone, especially our guests from Greece. With some of them I met just 2 days ago. Hi, Theo. Hi, Andres. And hi. Sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Sorry for. Can you please turn the mic? Moment. Moment. Yeah.
Nicholas.
And
Nicholas.
yes, and I'd like to welcome Nicholas. We are start our new chapter with the movement of conscientious objectors. So we're going to make some webinars with conscientious objectors from another countries. For example, Greece, Finland, and other countries where we have still conscription to the military service, and also we have, for example, alternative military service. It's very interesting to compare with Russian legislation, Russian procedure, and I think it would be interesting to hear your personal stories, how you applied for the alternative military service, and how you gone through this tough procedure. Maybe you have some interesting statistics and other interesting data that you can share with our viewers. I said that we are going to translate it into Russian. It would be recorded. So I think we can start from the beginning, from the conscription in Greece. So I will ask you, maybe we have some cue, or I will choose someone from you to answer my questions. Then I would like to hear your personal stories, your personal experience with military offices, maybe with another state institutions. And also, if we will have some questions from our viewers, we will let them to speak. Of course, about the topic of this webinar. So firstly, let's start from the beginning. What is conscription in Greece? So I know that each man in Greece are obliged to go to the army. So I would like to know what terms, what locations, and what responsibility you have if you choose to be a conscientious objector, and do you have alternative military service, and how is it possible to apply for alternative military service? Okay, I would like to choose Andres. Maybe you can start and share some data with our viewers.
Okay, yes, definitely. Hello, everyone. Today, conscription in Greece is mandatory, obligatory for each and every male only citizen of the country. We are obliged to fulfill a military service of 9 or 12 months. It depends on the place that the service takes place. If you are close to your house, it's 12 months or if you are at the borderline, you can serve only for 9 months. The date of your first call to the arms is when you feel your 18th birthday. And the obligation of fulfilling this particular service continues until you reach the age of 45. It's quite a long time. Well, the obligation is ruled by the National Constitution of Greece, which states that each and every male that can bear arms is obliged to fulfill a military service. So this is the highest law that we have to comply with. Now, if you are willing to, well, the state in Greece is like that. There are a lot of draft evaders that go through the exemption due to mental, mainly health reasons. Most of them state that they are suffering from certain mental, mainly issues and illnesses like schizophrenia or cataplesis and stuff like that, and they just avoid army without any penalties or any bad adverse effect on their civilian life afterwards. After 1996 to 1997, there is a law that allows you to fulfill this particular service in a civilian way. I mean that you have to offer a long time of 15 months of alternative social service. And this service for us is punitive due to the fact that we are obliged to live with 223.53 cents for 15 months in cities and areas that are in remote areas of our country, and we're obliged to work for 40 hours per week in services such as hospitals. Nicholas nowadays fulfills his own social service in a hospital of a smaller city of Greece.
Oh, sorry.
And
Can I stop you here because
Yeah,
I
of course.
really I want to ask you one question about the postponements or
Oh,
from
yeah.
the conscription. You mentioned that there are a lot of people who evade conscription because of their illnesses. Yeah, for example, schizophrenia or others. Yeah, but do you have another postponement, for example, with education or social? Could you or maybe can I ask Nicholas? Nicholas, can you can you explain some postponement not connected with medicine? Yeah, please.
So you can actually have 5 different types of postponement, I think, if I can count well in my mind. The one is for studies. So when you're 18 years old, the paper comes at your house and they're asking that you present yourself in a specific army camp to get trained for the military service. If you have already passed to a university through the exam system, or if you are even in the private, in some private university or whatever, you are taking a paper from there and sending it to the government. It's a very easy process. It takes some seconds. It's not to the government, to the army actually, to the headquarters. And you are saying that I am studying, so I cannot come right now. Usually they give you Andreas 4 years, if I remember well, for the university, or 10.
Can
Andrea?
can you make it longer? For example, you finished your bachelor program, and then you want to apply for master program or maybe for the next. Can you save this postponement or not, please?
Yes, I think that in order for you to study, you can be taking postponement. So personally, for example, because I was in the Marine school, not Army, commercial Navy. Okay. This is why he couldn't answer.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Andreas, please.
When you go to university, how many years do they give you?
It depends on the university, but most of the times you get from 6 up to 10 years.
Yes.
At least in my case, I took a 10-year postponement.
Me too. I took 10 years postponement. and after that, you don't have many choices. Like you can ask 3 more months for social reasons, and after you can only present, you can only get how it's called, postponements for health reasons. So either you have broken your leg or something, or you are sick and you are in the hospital, or what 25% of the Greek young boys who are called, every time that they call them at this stage, they are presenting a paper from a psychologist or a psychiatrist, showing that they have like anxiety disorder or how it's called, fear for the crowds, or depression and this kind of stuff, and they give you 1 more year, so they call you next year again. If you go second time again with another paper, the third time that you present yourself like that, you get a total exemption, so you are like you are not appropriate for them, and you get a total exemption, and you don't have to go to the army. You don't get any penalty for that. You are just free to continue with your life. So approximately 25%, it could be even 30, who knows, of the local youth chooses that way to avoid the army completely. And actually the army prefers that. Like if you don't want to go to the army, they prefer that you go that way.
Can I ask a question? For example, in Russia, we have conscription age from 18 till 27, but last year our authorities changed it from 27 to 30. So it's not like in Greece, but typically when it was maybe 2, 3, maybe 5 years ago, when you finished your education, bachelor or master program, and you have the period from 25 to 27 years, so sometimes military office can't they didn't want to find you, they didn't want to conscript you. So there are a lot of stories from guys like, oh, I didn't receive any calls from military office, or maybe they just lost my case. Is it work in Greece? Can you explain me, for example, if you finished your education in 35, is it work in Greece, or you have a very precise system of conscripts? Maybe yeah.
In Greece, no, it's very specific. I mean, you cannot avoid it, no way. They offer you this possibilities that I told you. Either you go to army, either you apply for conscientious objection, or you take an exemption for health reasons. So no, it's very specific. I think that what happens in Russia has to do with the fact that there's a big enough population for the needs of the army. In Greece, it's not like that. We're a smaller population, so it's quite specific. But if you have reached 35 years old, correct me if I'm wrong, Andreas, but if I remember well, from age 35 and after, you can actually buy the rest of your service. So, for example, you can pay a specific amount of money, which is like, I don't remember the exact amount of money, which is supposed to be paying the salary of a professional soldier for a year, and you take a paper like you went to the army normally.
So can I did I understand correctly? So you can pay to the state, and it's legally, it's like you paying your taxes, just not to go to the army. Maybe Andres, can you explain?
Well, not exactly like that, but you undergo a very specific initial training of 20 days, and then you are off. You just have to pay the rest of your service, and you are free to go.
By day, yes.
Yeah.
So it's like
you present to the army, you go undergo some training, but then you are free to go, but you have to pay for it. It's actually is the situation now with the leader of the second biggest party of Greece. He's going to the army for something like a month, and then he's gonna pay the rest of his service.
He will make it.
Sorry, is it work only from the specific age, or it works from 18th year for conscript?
It works since you have reached your 35 years.
Sorry, 35. Yeah, very, very interesting system. Okay, so I see Theo is with us. Hi, Theo. So I would like to ask my next question. It's would be about alternative military service. So I know that you have this institution, so you have an opportunity not to go to the military service, but to the alternative military service. Maybe Theo, can you explain us what it look like? What's the big difference from the military service? For example, period, the conditions, locations, and maybe in other details. And so I think we can start now with it. Theo.
Sure. Zdarova. Sorry, got a bit lost with my connection. I'm Theo from Greece. I recently finished my alternative service, so I have like very fresh impressions of how that works here. So the alternative service in Greece is done in public sector. So there's every year public services around Greece open up vacancies for conscientious objectors to work in. And that's mostly hospitals, post offices, and municipalities. There's some more, but the main ones are these. Regarding the place where you can serve, this is recently changed. It can be done all across Greece, but there is a punitive character that you cannot serve in your place of residence, and not just your town, it's the whole administrative region. So it's a big area, which supposedly is that it's the same for soldiers, which is not exactly accurate, but that's the official excuse of the state. Up until recently, you couldn't serve in big cities, but now that's also changed, and there's many many vacancies in Athens or Thessaloniki, which are big towns. The duration has also recently been decreased, and right now it's just over 3 months larger than the equivalent of military service. So in Greece, the full service is 12 months, and in the alternative service would be 15 months. And there's some rules where you can have reduced service due to social or family reasons. What else did I not cover? Sorry, Artem.
I would like to ask you maybe about procedure. So, you know, it's Russia, it's very tough to reach the alternative military service. So you need to apply for it, but you need to do it 6 months earlier the conscription started. So can you maybe specify some details about application for alternative military service? So how can you
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me take it step by step.
Yeah. Okay, please.
The time starts when you get your call for enlistment. So there's a paper you get from the army. It's now done electronically, and it says you have to present yourself at this army camp. And this is when your timer starts, because you have usually 20 to 30 days to file an application that you want to apply for alternative service. and there's this short amount of time where you have to gather many certificates that are first you need to write out your application and explain your reasons. Then you have to get a certificates that you don't have a gun license, for example, or a hunting license, or you have not been ever sentenced or even brought to trial, so for any criminal offense or related to guns and violence.
Sorry, it might affect might affect the decision of the military office. For example, if you have a gun license or hunting license, or you was under arrest, yeah, so it affects.
Exactly. It does not only affect it. It's what we call here. It's the irrebuttable presumptions. So if you have either of these, the military office has to reject your application. You cannot apply for alternative service, even if sometime in the past you had a gun license, or you were hunting, or you were brought to a trial. You don't even have to be sentenced for this. But this is the initial application. Then there is medical exams you have to take, and there's many specialties of doctors that have to sign that you are capable. It's the same criteria that apply to soldiers, so you have to be they have to find you that you're capable. And after the medical exams comes the call for the interview examination from a committee. This is usually
can we
sure
talk a little bit about medical exams? So I understand that it's works for military service and alternative military service, because in Russia you are obliged to go through medical exams. So we have 5 levels, or 5 categories from A to D. It's like categories that you have about your health conditions. So my question is, do you have maybe something the same, and is it important in Greece for medical institutions, or for doctors to write special level, special category when you are going through the medical exams? For example, in Russia, you can be even in alternative military service if you have category D. It's it's about the bad health condition that you might have. So can you explain this little bit detailed, please?
Sure. I assume that it's very similar to what you're saying, because in Greece we have the capability classes. It goes from I1 to I5, and I1 is the perfect condition, let's say, for a soldier, and goes up to I4. You can serve still, maybe not able to carry a gun, and I5 you are completely exempted, usually due to some psychiatric condition or anything else, that you cannot even be in the army camp in the first place. So alternative applicants for the alternative service go to actually military doctors. It happens in the military hospitals, because they are the ones that have to certify that you are not I5, actually. So if they found that you are in the I5 class, you're exempted. If you are in the other 4, you can continue with your application for the alternative service.
Is the list of some medical issues concerning I5 is big, or is it very narrow? For example, in Russia, it's quite big, so you might think that you are a health person, but after some medical exams, you can find that you have, for example, category C or category D. So what about Greece?
I don't particularly know about this one. I know that it's quite broad, but maybe someone here knows better. Nicolas or Andreas, I don't know.
Maybe Andres or
Nicolas? Well, main reasons to get to the I5 category are the serious health problems that relate to your weight, sexual orientation, maybe sex matters and stuff like that, and also psychiatric reasons, things like depression, anxiety, high anxiety levels and stuff like that. But despite that, most of the soldiers tend to go to the first three categories. There's a small number of soldiers going to category number 4, and an even smaller number going to category 5. And most of them, they pretend to have something in order to avoid the army. But we don't got adequate statistics to state something like that. So it's a thing happening, but we don't know in which extent.
I'd like to add that it's, for example, if you have a tumor, if you have hepatitis, like some serious disease, the moment that they're calling you, or maybe you have broken your leg, and it has just happened during at the moment of the call. If you are a drug addict at the moment that you have been called, or in jail, it's not an arrow, but for the last part is like you have to present something serious. The psychological purpose, though, is easy to present, and they give that choice knowing that they are allowing some valve for the pressure to go out. So the people who really don't want to go, they can just use that valve. They present some psychological reason, like anxiety or depression. It's very easy to do that, and they don't create problems. They easily pass you. You do it just 3 times, and the 3rd time you get the complete exemption, which is called IOTA 5, by the way. It's like the D category that you described.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we can move to the next question. So Theo started to tell about the interview. I think it's about interview in military office. So Theo, can you please continue about this step? Yeah.
Absolutely. This is actually the most the biggest pain point of the whole procedure. There is a committee that judges the applications on their merits. So they have to supposedly the law says, and the Greek case law, which is very strict in this sense compared to what the European law says or the international law, there is a very strict procedure, which you have to prove that you are following a known ideological or religious doctrine, and you have to have the reasons you invoke have to be sincere, serious, and you have to follow them inviolably in your life. This we have seen in many court cases where, like, a person maybe has been maybe supported in the past some revolutionary movement in some region in the world, and the committee will get just this thing and say, okay, you clearly have not been following this inviolably through your whole life, so at this moment you cannot ever get the alternative service. But in general, there's a very high bar for which you have to prove this, that you have these reasons. And us 3, probably we got lucky. So the committee is indeed in military offices. It only adjourns in Athens at the, how do you say, like the Pentagon of Greece, let's say. And so every applicant has to go there to be interviewed. The committee is 5 members, and the 3 of them are university professors of psychology or social sciences or political sciences or law. 1 member is a legal advisor of the state, and the other main member is a legal advisor of the army. And in the past, it was even worse. The composition was less ideal than this. Now there's still a military element, but it's gotten gradually better. So you get there to the interview, and the common thing is for them to ask trick questions, where if you fall to the trap and say, maybe at some point, like if someone would come to punch my mother or my sister, I would maybe make a move to disarm them or punch them back. That's a trap question, and many people don't know that, and it requires, like, when I went to the interview, and probably when Andreas went and Nicolas went, there's no prior knowledge that these questions are trap questions, and many people fall in this trap, and it's actually it's more of a theater thing.
Can I ask you a question about
Sure.
the power of military office? So can they, can these civil servants or this state institution send requests to another state institutions or maybe to schools where you have learned, in order to know some issues about you? Maybe do you have some, maybe you are a good sportsman in gun sport or something like this, or maybe you attended some fight courses of another. Can they have this power or not? Or is this all about interview and only about trap questions? Maybe Andres or Nicholas or Theo? Andres, can I?
As we know, for now, they don't. It's ministry doesn't communicate with another one, at least for that particular reason. Maybe it is done underground, maybe through secret services or police, maybe, but we cannot be sure. The thing is that this particular committee is only advisory to the Ministry of Defense, which is the only one responsible in order to give you the right
decision
to do the social service. So this committee that Theo presented acts only as giving a second opinion to the relevant minister. As we know, for now, it's mainly based on the interview and the way you present yourself to them. You have to present yourself, at least in my opinion, as a non-violent person, which does not support any revolutionary movements like Zapatistas or Rojava and stuff like that. You have to take at least a distance from them and just present your own reasoning on non-violence and how society should work in another way.
Can I ask a question about the beliefs? So, for example, Russian Constitutional Code stated that, of course, you can be a man with some military views, but you can face some tough issue. For example, war, or war can affect you in your life, and then you can change your beliefs. For example, you can change your beliefs 1 month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and then file an application to the alternative military service. Is it possible to explain to the military office in Greece? For example, I was a military man, then something affected me, and now I don't want to carry a gun in my hands, or something like this. Maybe Theo or Nicholas, can I ask you?
Yeah, actually, all this thing has been moving gradually, very slowly during the years that that have passed since the first time that it was that it became a law in the Constitution. It didn't happen by itself, by the way. As you may know, there are small heroes or big heroes that actually made that possible. they spent a long time in the prison, and they had to bring the whole subject to the surface, and the whole society had to exchange opinions, and there were very militant views as well, because there's the fear of Turkey. But anyway, by the end of the whole story, the law became a reality, and since then, it keeps on getting better slowly. Like sometimes it moves forward, sometimes it moves back. So one of the things, yes, I think that this has changed recently, and you can change. Am I right, Thodoris? I think
yes,
even
it's how Artem said. If you the law says that if you have served in the army but have since changed your beliefs, you can now apply for a conscientious objection. I don't think we know of such cases, apart from this was caused by a court. This came from a court case originally, but I don't know how common this is, and what the committee judges in these cases, how favorably it does so.
Andres, do you want something to add? Oh, sorry, Nico.
Yes, at least I know of one person that nowadays he's a monk at the monasteries of Ionoros in Greece. He used to be a soldier, but after the war in, I'm not sure if it is in Vietnam or another one, during the 80s probably, he changed his beliefs, and due to the fact that the army had no way to put him out, they just reduced his way up in the ranks. So he left after 3 years, and nowadays he's a monk at Ionoros. A really religious and well-respected man for me. I cannot recall his name. I'm so sorry for that.
Okay, but it's I think it's very good to hear that you can find.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Okay, so I think yes, Nicholas, please.
Generally, the group that gets easily a pass from the committee, usually they're not even asked to present themselves in the committee and get examined. They just have to give their papers and the application and all the paperwork. Is the Jobas Witnesses, as you know. Jobas Witnesses have been martyrs for this subject for decades. So they have spent even 10 years in the prisons of Greece in the past. I mean, there were people with 10-year sentences in prison, a lot of torturing, and even they have even shot them to death. So anyway, nowadays they are the only group that they can just send a paper from their church, Jehovah's Witnesses church. Are you familiar with the movement of Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yes, of course. I know, because in Russia they claimed as an extremist organization, so they face very tough times. Yeah. Please tell. Do you want something?
Artem, I would just like to reverse the question, because it also sounds very relevant today. If it's how is it in the Russian law? If it's a soldier that has already served, or is it currently in the army as a conscript or a professional soldier, if they can apply for conscientious objection and leave the army?
Do you mean something that something about mobilization that is going on in Russia? Because if you were conscript in the army, so you passed 1 year in army, so you are free to go, and you becoming a man in reserve, and you can be called only for mobilization or some military events. For example, 2 weeks, but you can say no, and it's very easy. But if we are talking about mobilization, so okay, I can borrow 1 minute. So if we're talking about mobilization, we have one case in 2022 about one guy from St. Petersburg. He was a conscripted soldier, He served 1 year in the military army. Then he became a reservist, and he was mobilized by military office to the war. And then he applied for alternative military service while mobilization. And in Russia, we have we have an article in Constitution about alternative military service, but we don't have anything in our legislation. A legislation about military, about conscription army, about mobilization. So the military office stated that if we don't have it, so we can't give you a decision about alternative military service, a positive decision. So they refused. He went to the court and he won in district court. Then he won in appellate instance, and then he won in our cassation. Sorry, maybe
Court of Cassation.
Court of Cassation, yeah. And I don't know, maybe they're going to the Supreme Court of Russian Federation, but as for now, we have only one man. Oh, sorry, guys, I said that he was a conscripted man. No, I mistake, because he served as an alternative civil servant. It's very important in that case. He wasn't a conscripted military man. He applied for alternative military service, and then he was mobilized. And because of this, he applied also for alternative military service while the mobilization was in Russia and is in Russia. And only because of this, he won the court. But I researched in other cases. For example, when a man was conscripted in a military, in army, and he was also refused by court with his claims. It's a little bit tough, and we still don't have some crucial articles in our legislation about alternative military service in mobilization period, at this period. Okay, let's back to Greece. So we have spoken about interview, and I wanted to ask you a question about some proofs, or maybe another documents, or witnesses. So in Russia, you can call some witnesses, for example, your mother, friends, maybe your teacher from school, and they can state that you are a pacifist, or maybe you have some religious views against military, against army. And then you can send some documents from school, also maybe from some another legal entities and so on. So do you have something in Greece, or how can you prove your beliefs or position? Tell, please.
Just because it is an administrative procedure, it falls under the general law about administrative procedures, whereby anytime you're called for like an interview where the state has to give you an opportunity to state your reasons, you can bring any evidence. And so I suppose that this would fall under this law. I don't think we know of such practice that conscript applicants do it often. So it's a bit of a gray area, but I believe that it would fall under this, that you can bring any evidence.
And is it very important? So I think how military officers react to this document. Nicholas, do you have something to add, please?
Yeah, I'd like to add that this committee's purpose at the moment in Greece, except for the Jobas Witnesses, that, as I said, they are not even brought to the committee. They are passing automatically. They're not considered extremist here. Except for them, the committee's purpose is generally, it's a saying between all conscientious objectors for ideological or political reasons. its role is mainly to reject. Like they get a line from the government, an order, let's say, that we only have to pass as many people as we need in order to show to European Union or United Nations that the law is being followed. So they pass just as many as they need to, or they just pass the people that they cannot do otherwise with them. Like, so yeah. So actually, the papers that you have to bring to them, they have to look official enough. And it's important to, from what I understood, it's important to be careful to use keywords because they are looking constantly for reasons not to pass you. In my case, I got rejected the first time, for example, and they give you one more chance that you can ask from the Minister of Defense specifically to change the decision. And you have to bring more documents to make your case stronger. So in that case, for example, I asked a paper from a famous person, like kind of famous person who is cooking food for the people in the streets. And he, because at the time we were working together, we were cooking together that day. So he wrote a paper for me that he knows me and I'm a pacifist person and I like for years and this kind of stuff. And I asked also from an environmental organization that I was participating also, and from Amnesty International, to give you an example, because I also became a member during the time. And they use that as an excuse that, okay, you brought us papers. They have to have some papers that look official in order for them to pass someone, or else you give them just the perfect excuse so that you get rejected. They say, oh, you didn't prove to us that your consciousness doesn't allow you to have a gun, because this is the main point. Like, you have to prove that your consciousness doesn't allow you to have a gun. It's like, it's a matter of, I would like, but I cannot, this kind of thing. So depending on the government, for example, you can have like a committee, is it a committee that passes everyone, like when we had the leftist progressive government some years before, almost everyone, all the applicants. And now you have this center-right party that in 2019, apart from the Jobas Witnesses, that we had 100 people, 100-something people that all passed, all the people who applied, like 12 people every year, we're talking about such a small number of people, who applied for to be recognized as conscientious objectors, they were all rejected, all 12 of them. It was like a small scandal for the people who were studying the subject.
Can I ask a very interesting question, because I wanted to step to the next about the decision of military office, but you mentioned the connection with political situation in the country and the members of the military office. It's very interesting. So you said you have in Greece the leftists government, and they changed the military offices. How these people can take their seats in military office? Because in Russia there are only military guys, and the head of the military office is a civil servant from the local administration, from the local municipality, and it's really they change quite rarely. But how's it in Greece? Because it's very interesting for me. Sorry for a little bit changing the way of our webinar, but can maybe Andres?
Do you mean the committee or the military offices that are around the country?
I mean the military offices. So that allows you to be an alternative to allows you an alternative civil service, or if
the military offices don't have any jurisprudence on this. It's usually they just relay the application to the Central Military Committee that is in Athens.
So
all decisions go through this committee.
And this committee is affected by the government.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's appointed by the Minister of Defense.
So and
regularly.
they can influence on local offices, military offices, or not?
No. Local draft offices are only eligible to draft you. It's,
Nicholas, please.
No, Andreas was talking.
The draft offices are only allowed to draft you, so they keep the records and they can send you the issue if you do not appear to them. And you just do the first steps with them. Then it's absolutely a responsibility of the Ministry of Defense. And it's even not the committee that decides whether you are eligible or not to do a social alternative service. So it's like a favor done to individuals by the Minister of Defense. For me, it's not a favor, it's a right, but it's a kind of quite discussion here.
Okay. Nicholas, please.
Clarify it a little bit in my understanding. The military office in Greece just has the responsibility to invite you and actually welcome you and start send you to the place that you have to go so that you can start training. Once you state there that you want to apply for conscientious objection, you stop being under their jurisdiction. They still send documents to you and they transfer documents from one place to the other, but actually they are not the ones who are deciding for you. In my understanding, it's the committee that actually is making a decision based on what the government has asked from them to do, and they are sending their proposition, which in my understanding is the decision, to the minister, who puts the final signature that, okay, these people are recognized as conscientious objectors, and these ones are rejected, they are not recognized. Every year, this committee is changing. Every year, if I understand well, Thodori, like the Minister of Defense is bringing 3 new professors.
2 years.
Every 2 years. 3 new professors, 1 person from the civil sector, I don't remember the word, and there is always 1 army general also inside the committee.
So if I understand correctly, so it's like the central military, so I say military office because it's maybe more familiar with Russian pronunciation of this, but we are calling it military commissariat, but it's military office is simply. So it's like the central military committee that governs the people who want to be conscientious objectors, right?
Exactly, and it's because there's such a small number of applications every year. They haven't had the need to change it yet, so that it's spread out through the country. It can easily be managed centrally. But if we had like the same numbers as like Austria or Russia, perhaps, they would be overloaded. But currently, it's really done by the Minister of National Defense himself that we get the approval or the rejection.
Wow, it's really interesting.
Such an honor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Can we step to the next point? I wanted to ask Theo about the decision of military office. So I asked Theo 2 days ago, or maybe 3 days ago, about it, and he stated that the committee investigates all documents, and then they realize the final decision. And I was surprised by that fact that you need to prove it. You need to present all your beliefs, to present another documents, and even after this, you can face negative decision. So can you please tell our viewers about the decision and about the instruments that you have after it? For example, about the claim to the court or claim to the military, the Department of Defense, or something like this. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The interview part we have covered, I think, and Nicholas explained how there was a year where the committee rejected wholesale all applicants for ideological reasons. So it is indeed, like you say, you may have even brought many documents and you are still rejected. Now what you can do after that is there's two ways. One is the administrative appeal that Nicholas also explained before, where you ask from the Minister of Defense to change their decision. And the second way, if you file this appeal, the administrative appeal, it is examined again by the Ministry of Defense. And usually they're not favorable. Usually they get rejected as well.
Automatically.
Nicholas is an exception here, a rare exception. And the second way...
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Theo, please can you continue? And then I would like to ask Nicholas about his...
Yeah. And the second thing is the appeal to the court, as you said. And this is also a unique element because these decisions can only be appealed directly to the Supreme Court. There's no small court that judges these, so you go directly to the Supreme Court, which is very costly compared to other legal procedures. You need a lawyer, and of course, to have a decision takes years. Also, the Supreme Court has a case law, unfortunately in Greece, where it will not allow itself to get into the merits of the application. So it leaves it up to the administration, which is here the committee and the minister, and it trusts its opinion on whether an applicant has been sincere, has had serious beliefs. So the court will not judge if an applicant's reasons are sincere or serious. It will only examine the case to see if the decision is sufficiently justified. So if the committee has made a procedural error or it has ignored some document you have presented, you get a good decision from the Supreme Court. Otherwise, you probably will get rejected by the Supreme Court as well, because it trusts the judgment of the administration, and your only way out after that is international bodies, which is either the European Court or the Human Rights Committee of the United Nations.
Can we say that the Supreme Court revises the whole procedure that is executed in the military office or not?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Can we say that in the Supreme Court of Greece revises all procedure that is executed in the military office? So it's like everything start from the beginning or not? Or it's only, you said about the procedure errors, and you mentioned some documents and other stuff errors. So
sure, it can only do that. For example, there has been a case where the committee, it's supposed to have five members, if you remember, and there was a case where one was missing, and it was only 4 of them. And the applicant went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided that it is a procedural error. There should be all 5 members, or at least there should not be a a majority of or equal number of military-related members. And it still cannot say that we judge also the merits and we approve the application. So the applicant, we overthrow the decision, and also the applicant is a conscientious objector because it doesn't allow itself to get into the merits. It will annul the decision, and we will ask the committee and the minister to redo that part of the process.
And
not from the start, like medical exams, but you get these parts that had procedural errors, you have to repeat.
So what, to give you a simple example, you can have like someone, they make the initial application to get recognized. They bring all the paperwork and stuff like that. They present themselves to the committee. You can actually also boycott the committee, either by saying it publicly that I will not participate in the examination, or presenting yourself to it and deny to be examined verbally, let's say, to speak with them and accept questions. For that we can have a separate talk later. But let's say you pass through all this procedure and you get rejected. After, the second stage is like you ask from the minister to change his opinion. Usually you have an automatic second rejection from there, and after your way goes to the Supreme Court. You apply to the Supreme Court. To start a case costs approximately 2,600 euro for the case. To give you a number, I don't know if you can kind of think, it's like 3 salaries in Greece, guys, like 3 or 4 minimum salaries, monthly minimum wages. So it's like quite costly, and not everyone can make it. And the most outrageous thing about that is that, as Thodoris said, even if the Supreme Court judges that actually the decision of the committee was not right for legal reasons, and you get, let's say, a good decision, after that you are not recognized as a conscientious objector still. You still have to make a new application, and you can still get rejected from the committee. And it has happened. It has happened with a guy. So let's say you have spent 2,600 euro begging from the government to allow you to serve in a civil way, and the government still doesn't accept you. You get a positive answer from the court that you were right and they were wrong. You apply one more time and still they reject you.
Can I ask here a very important question, because we have a comment from our viewer about the calls for military, how often the call for military take place. And then I would like to ask you about about this. Theo, please.
It's 6 times a year. It has changed recently. It's more frequent, so it's every 2 months.
6 times per year, every 2 months. Oh,
What do you
Yeah.
that they call you specifically every 2 months?
No, the draft season is it's every 2 months. So
January, March, May, and so on.
so you have a draft period each 6 months with a period for 1 month.
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months. Oh, because
with a period of 2 months. It takes it usually takes 1 month, but you may be called later for reasons.
So here, I wanted to ask one freaky question, because in Russia we have 2 calls per year and it's one call is about 3 months, and another call is about 4.5 months, if I'm not mistaken now. But the situation is, if you are rejected by the military commission in changing your military service by alternative service, you can file a claim, then you wait. Because of this bureaucracy, the period of calling you to the army is ended, and then you can file a claim again. And it's very useful instrument, because you can repeat and repeat, and then you can file another claim to the court if you got rejected. So Nicholas, is it possible in Greece, or they can terminate, authorities can terminate this instrument, or not?
They're actually terminating your possibilities are terminated after what I described you. I mean, you just have one chance. If you get rejected, you can have a second chance of asking from the Minister of Defense specifically to change his decision. And after that, you only have the Supreme Court, which if it gets you right, if you get innocent, I don't know how to say the word in English, you can apply for a second time, which is not actually official in the law. And sometimes you can even be rejected for that automatically, because you cannot make a second application. So after that, the only path that you have is either going to the army or getting like a 6,000 euro fine. And after that, you start having a marathon of the possibility, which is random, that they will call you again to present yourself in the army. You will again say no. You will pay. You will have a 6,000 euro fine more. And there are people who can have like 4 or 5 times the fine for the same punishment.
Oh, okay.
For the same crime, let's say, of not going to the army, which is also taxed. I mean, not taxed. The word is like it
Interest.
can become more.
There's interest.
Yeah, it can.
Oh, okay. So
Either always the possibility that you can get an I-5. I like an exemption for health reasons. Like they're forcing you to, like, please, my boy, don't say the truth of whatever you have for the army. Just get a paper that you're crazy, and it's okay. I mean, you can do that at any point, if I'm not mistaken, guys.
Okay, so I got this point. It's very interesting. So the final step of our webinar, I wanted to ask your personal stories. So we ended on the decision of military officers, and now I would like you to share our viewers your personal experience as an conscientious objector. So how it was. I'm quite interested about your story, Nicholas, because Theo said that you was refused by the military office. How that was, how you applied, what the decision was, where did you work, what was the conditions, how much do you earn money, and how it ended for you. So can we start from maybe Andres, from you?
Well, whatever. Well, my draft postponement expired on Christmas of 2022, and I did 2021 maybe, I'm not sure. And I decided to do something a bit more political and stand up for my views and ideas on things like the army and militarism and authority. So I choose to go through the conscientious objection way, and then not serve the army and go do something for the society. I followed the procedure that we described above, and actually, I think I met Theodoris at the at the Minister of Defense. It was our first meetup there, and after a positive decision from the committee, I was obliged to do my social alternative service at the postal office of Sparti, which is a relatively highly militarized society in Greece. Probably you know from the movie of 300s and stuff like that. And I was responsible for parcels and some letters, and it was a really fun and really positive experience. I met new people. I discussed with them about things like war and violence and how we have to stand up for our own views in a public manner. And it's less than a week that I'm done with that. So I'm waiting for my final paper that I completed this particular obligation towards the state. The salary it's not exactly a salary because it's not a working relationship. It's like a
compensation.
Compensation, nice. Thank you, Thoris. It's a compensation of 2,023 euros and 53 cents.
Sorry, 200, not 2,000.
200. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry for that. It's not that much. It's 200 euros. And this amount of money is given to you if the institution that you are you have to fulfill your service is not eligible to provide you with food and a place to stay. So they give you the compensation. You have to find a way to feed yourself and dress up and pay your bills and make a living during these 50 months.
So you have a job. It takes 8 hours or maybe more per day, from Monday to Friday.
It takes from Monday to Friday from 7 in the morning till 3 in the noon.
And then
so
you need to find something.
Something to add to your income and make a living.
Illegally.
Oh,
illegally. Yeah, because you cannot pay for insurances since the time you are
it's quite tough
to fulfill your alternative service.
Because in Russia, it's simple. It's similar because you earned maybe only 150, 170 euro per month. But you can easily find another job or maybe part-time job and spend another part of the day at the part-time job. But in Greece, it's illegal. And how is it possible? Can you answer, guys? How is it possible to stay alive with salary or compensation like this, and to work illegally? Maybe
I expand on that, but if Andreas has finished,
definitely.
Should we let Andreas finish?
No, you're okay.
Then when it's my turn.
Okay, tell please.
Actually, I wouldn't say it's illegal to work a second job. It's a bit blurry again. But the point here is that you shouldn't have to have a second job at the first place. The state is supposed to cover for your food and housing, but it is not doing so. With 200 euros, it's not really that. So, I mean, we can discuss about if it's legal or not, but at the end of the day, it should be much, much more. 200 is the amount we get is 1/3 of the minimum wage in Greece. And the expenses are double at least.
So you need to find accommodation. You need to find food. You need to.
You're actually renting because remember you're not you cannot serve in your place of residence. So even if you have a family house, you cannot live there.
Okay, Teo,
you have to rent.
Can you please
you have to cover for your food.
Teo, can you please express your personal story, and then maybe I will ask another question. Please.
Is Andreas done with his story?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay. So my story starts way earlier. Since I got into university at 19, I was reading about the alternative service, and I was thinking about what I will do when the time comes for my enlistment. And I had already, I was attracted by the idea that I will be working somewhere where there is, in theory, a public service and a public good being done. I had not made my decision, and it happened 2 years ago, where I wanted to actually find a job abroad and then maybe come back. So I had to get this thing settled. And I had ruled out going to the army. I had ruled out pretending to have an illness or a medical issue and go the I-5 path. So my only options were either evading and going abroad, or doing the alternative service. And I went the alternative service way. It wasn't, you don't know, like, even after I went to the interview, you have to wait 1 month. And this 1 month where you wait for the decision is very excruciating, because you know that if you get a rejection, you have very few things you can do. Luckily, I was approved, and because I have a degree in computer science, they appointed me to the IT department of a municipality in a very pretty island in the Aegean. And so I went there in Mytilene, and I was working for the municipality, and the people, actually this municipality has a very long past of accepting conscientious objectors, and every year it opens vacancies for that, and they know, and I was lucky to be there, and the people were very welcome, and the city in general is a very pretty town. And I finished in July, and as things turned out, it was a very important experience, a very formative experience for me. I don't want to think about what would have happened if I had gotten rejected, but it is the reality for many of the conscientious objectors that they are eventually rejected, and we're the lucky ones.
Can I ask a small question? You said that you had 2 options, and one of them was to evade, and another was to leave country.
No, it's the same. I could draft evade, and either stay in the country and be persecuted, or go abroad, and there's another regime for that.
If you go abroad in Belgium, for example, the member of the European Union, so what would be in Greece? So they're going to initiate against you a criminal case, or maybe administrative case, or
it's both. You get a fine for 6,000 euros. Right away. You're not presented, you immediately get the fine, and then because you're abroad, there's no even especially if you go to the embassy and you prove that you are now living abroad, there is no criminal case, and there's no prosecution going on. But and you can also enter the country, but it's just for 30 days a year. But the fine still exists, and this is the main pain point today, where there may be get money from your bank accounts because you're not paying it, or or they are going after any properties that maybe you have in your name, unless you pay the fine, which is 6,000 euros.
Oh, 6,000 euros. Yeah, it's quite simple with situation in Russia now, but we do not have fines like 6,000 euros. But we face difficulties with people who left Russia and live abroad. For example, you need to file a special application that I live abroad, so please delete me from your lists as a potential military man. And they stated that no, you need to come personally. You need to apply. You need to file an application personally, not like having any lawyer or maybe through the email or electronic state services. So
that's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, Theo, and can I ask another question about you mentioned, but it was in the beginning of the webinar, that in Greece conscripts are called electronically. Is it true? Because in Russia, authorities passed a new law in April 2023 about electronic registry and special electronic collapse. So it was in paper for the last 20 years. Can you please very fast explain, how is it in Greece? With collapse, of course.
I suppose that at some point maybe you're also going to get a call from the police, but usually you just enter the website of the army and there you get the note for the call for enlistment.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's done by a website. It's been recent also that this is happening.
Oh, I quite understand from which country Russian authorities copy paste all articles. Okay, because a lot of conscripts in Russia a little bit shocked, and because we have a rule that you need to write your name and your last name on the summons. So maybe it was only in paper. And it was very easy to evade army and not to be guilty, because it was an obligation from the military office to find you. Okay, sorry for this this question not connected with your story. Can you please mention what salary, what compensation do you have, where, and you worked in IT department, you said?
Yeah, I worked for the IT department. The compensation we get is the same regardless of the position, even though some conscientious objectors serve in other regimes. Maybe they are like night security guards for a school, which maybe someone would say that they should be paid more. I don't know. But again, it's not a salary, it's a compensation for food and housing. So in that sense, we get the amount we said. It's the same for everyone. It's 223 to be exact. And it's 1/3 of the minimum wage.
Okay, so thank you, Theo. I think we can move on to Nicholas. Nicholas, I'm wonder to hear your story because of it's a little bit different from the Andres and Theo's stories. So can you please?
Yeah, actually, I think that even I had a little bit of help from the guys, at least Thodoris, who was more active already in the movement, in the legal stuff. In my personal story, in relationship to the army, has to do with avoiding the whole thing, avoiding to think about it as much as I could until I couldn't avoid anymore. I wanted to study more about the subject so that I can have like an answer and an action that would fit my ideals and the things that I want to stand for. And it was very tempting for me to go for the I-5, for the exemption for medical reasons. So I had already taken two postponements for because of medical reasons. The one time I presented a paper that my sister had brought to me for free because she was working in a psychiatrist. And the second time I went there and I told them the truth. I told them, guys, I have a shop and a restaurant, a vegan restaurant. I cannot stop. I cannot come because there's no one to work back there and I am owing money. And the psychiatrist of the army camp, he wrote for me, like very easily, like no problem. He said, no problem, my boy. And he just wrote on my paper, anxiety disorders. And he told me the third time, the final time that they will call you, bring me also one paper from the psychiatrist so that it will be much faster and easier for you. Even if I wouldn't bring, they would still pass me. So the third time would be like the last call, would be like my end of the story for me. I wouldn't have to care about it anymore. So anyway, they called me last time. I studied as much as I could. It is like a stressing thing, quite stressing, but I'm very happy for that because I learned a lot of things. I read history. I had to give answers for myself, and still I want to study so much because it's not just simple. When you think for your community, I mean, what is the right thing to do in some cases? I'm still searching. And after a point, I mean, I was reading stories. I was reading stories from Israeli refusers because Israel is even harder. They don't even have a possibility for alternative service. The same applies to Turkey. And this is quite an obstacle for the movement of conscientious objection to move, by the way, forward in Greece, because Turkey, like the eternal enemy of Greece, has not moved one step to conscientious objection yet. So it's very difficult for us to move to a second step once they have not followed our first step. But anyway, I read about stories from other people, especially my wife is also from Turkey. She's a Turkish in origin. So she had a friend who officially said no to the army, and he passed through a lot of difficulties. So after a point, I was feeling like bad to not to stand for my right. I said, like, if they are doing it in so difficult in places that it's so difficult, how much of a coward you should be to say no. This kind of story. I think that everybody passes from something like that. And anyway, I started searching in the internet for people who are supporting this kind of things. The official organization that is for conscientious objection in Greece was looking like inactive for the last 4 or 5 years or something. Their website had not been renewed. They didn't have a telephone that I could call. So it was a very lonely kind of research. But finally I found a website, like a small website that was run by a guy. And he's getting help also from other people, conscientious objectors, that they are helping you to fill the applications and preparing you for what you need to know. And actually you can save yourself a lot of traps if you first communicate with them. But it was not very easy for me to find. It was not like the first thing coming out in the search engine in Google. But I mean, I don't have enough words to say how much I'm owing my respect to the help that I got from there. But anyway, the thing is that I had already applied. I had already written a text of 20 pages to the Ministry of Defense explaining why I wouldn't choose to go to the army before communicating with that website. So I missed some key words that I should have used, and maybe I have used some words that I shouldn't have used. And also there was an ethical dilemma because I had read that in the past there were people that had denied to be examined from the committee. And I had a very big dilemma if I would follow their way because it looked more brave, because they boycotted the committee with the explanation, with a demand basically that it leaves from the Ministry of Defense, that it should have nothing to do with the Ministry of Defense. Once you're saying that you don't want to be a soldier, you shouldn't be considered like a soldier, and your case shouldn't be judged from a military authority. So actually there is a fight for that actively. So anyway, I decided, I still remember the moment, it was stressing, but I said, okay, I will do it the full way. I will deny also in my letter that I will publicly say that I will not be examined from the committee. And I sent the letter anyway. After I communicated with this website that I told you, which is called Alternative Service, and I started getting more informed about this. So they called me to finally, after, I don't know, maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. They were not even right with their law. They should have replied in 2 months. They called me to present myself in the committee. The strange thing is that 2 days before this committee happens, I got a phone call from the Ministry of Defense, from one secretary, that told me that, hello, Mr. Nikolopoulos, would you like to, I wanted to inform you that 2 days after today, like the day after tomorrow, is the day that you will have to present yourself in the committee in Athens. What are your plans? I said that, I replied to her that actually I had difficulties going to Athens, but I would still deny to be examined. But I knew from the people who helped me that if I would present myself to them face to face, and there I would declare that I deny to be examined, it would be in favor of a good decision. I would have a little bit more chances that I don't get rejected. While if I would deny to present myself and to get examined, I would make the possibility of a recognition as an alternative service person even more narrow. Anyway, they told me that you don't even have to come. It's okay. The law says that you don't have to come. So I didn't go the first time. And after 2 more months, I got the answer that I was rejected through an official paper, and that I should present myself to the army in July and start serving.
And what did you do? So it's a very interesting part. So yeah. Did you appellate to the court or to the Ministry of Defense? So what was the next step?
I decided to send an application to the Minister of Defense to change his decision. And on that specific thing, I had serious help from other people, from older conscientious objectors. I think that Thodoris helped at that point too. Because I was so busy preparing my restaurant for the summer season, I didn't have enough time to make all these things. They prepared the text for the application, which was full of all the legal arguments, explaining why their decision was illegal based on what they had written, because the answer that they give is a copy-paste answer to everybody. Specifically, it says that the arguments that you presented to us are not enough. They don't prove that you have a problem taking a gun. So your application is rejected and you are called to serve. At that point, anyway, the text, which was like 20 or 30 pages, was actually the preparation for the Supreme Court. And I had quite a lot of chances to win because they had made some serious mistakes on how they had expressed their decision.
Can you shortly express what were the mistakes?
They had not stated some texts that I had additionally sent to them. So it was like we were not even sure if they read them because I sent even a second text with more keywords so that I helped them. And also I had even sent a letter explaining why I wouldn't get examined from the committee. There was no reference to that. They said the word ideology. They stated the word that they said the ecological ideology that you presented is not a proof that you cannot have a weapon. When in reality, we explained that actually the ecological movement has been one of the greatest spaces.
It was like pacifist also has pacifist details, yes? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So they made the mistake to say the word ideology, so they were recognizing that there was an ideology, and actually the ideology that created the biggest conscientious objectors in Greece, the place where they came from. And at the same time, at some point they were writing that we unanimously reject the application, and in the previous sentence they had said we by majority we reject.
So it was
so
like
this meant
procedure error.
Because this shows that there was a possibility that some of the professors said no, didn't agree with the decision. He would pass me. And if that had happened, they should have also written that professor said no to our decision for these purposes. And they didn't also write that. So anyway, because of all these mistakes, it was like I had good chances that the court would say that the decision was not valid. So I had already prepared myself that I would have to pay this 2,600 euro, which is like the money that I save through my work. It's an important part of my winter living, but I had decided that it will be good for the movement. But finally, anyway, together with this 20 pages thing, I also gave these 3 extra papers that I told you before. It was about this famous person that cooks, Amnesty International, and one more. And it was one of these very few exceptions that they actually accepted the new application to the minister, and they called me for a new examination from the committee.
Oh, so it was start from the beginning.
No. They just give you a second time to present yourself in the committee. They don't have to bring
it was as part of their examining the application, actually. Before issuing the final decision, they called him up for an interview.
So you was called by the
rare.
Central Ministry of Defense, this one state institutions, to present yourself again, yeah?
Exactly. To this committee that examines your application. They summoned again, and they had to examine some new applications. So they called me again a second time. This time it was in the beginning of July, of this July. I went there, I presented myself, and I told them that I present myself so that you see me face to face, so that I can know that you are receiving these documents that I am giving to you. Because the last time your answer gave us the impression that you didn't really read anything that I had written, based on also the opinions of more conscientious objectors. and to publicly refuse to be examined from this committee, because it's part of the Ministry of Defense, so your decision cannot be independent.
You know, it's like
your
it's like in Russia, because we also have this opportunity to appellate to the central military office in regions. So we have district military office, then central military office in the regions of Russia, and they 99% that they agree with their colleagues from the district military office, and I quite often say that it's really useless. You need to go to the court after the having the negative decision. So yeah.
So anyway, I said that, and one argument that has stayed with me very intensively, and I think it's the weakest part of what the army does, and how much it costs to the country of Greece in many sectors. I told them that I find you responsible as the people, this committee and the people that is serving it, for pushing thousands of young men every year to get an exemption for medical reasons, instead of serving the country in some in the social and civil sector. I mean, you are pushing people to become lazy and to not do anything, and the very few people who come to you, like 10 people every year without any exaggeration, you are even rejecting them. And I was expecting that they wouldn't pass me. Finally, they passed me. They recognized me, and now anyway, I'm in one city in the hospital, in the pharmacy department. I'm giving, I'm setting drugs to the different sectors of the hospital.
Well, it's very interesting story. I think in Russia, you maybe you have a case named after you. We have it quite often. Some popular cases in court, usually named after the person who was granted this decision. So, guys, thank you. Can we move to the questions? We have some questions in chat, and I can call our viewers to write some questions that you have in chat. So I have this question from the viewer named Red Boot. Okay, what if you go to another university graduating from your current one? Will you get another delay of the army service? I think I asked it, but Theo, could you please also repeat?
Sure. First of all, I would like to take this moment to thank you very much for organizing this, and thank you everyone for staying until now, and we're more than ready to answer any questions that you have. I will answer this one, also the one above about who is not called for the military. So for the universities, there is there are some rules where it's some age limits. So if you go to the university for a bachelor's or a master, there's no such, like your first university, you get a like a delay for until you're 28, for example. If it's a specialty school, it's like after like a technical school or something like this, it's less. And then if you do like a doctorate, a PhD, you get a delay until you're 31. And the law says that even if you go to like 3 universities, it doesn't change this age limit. So you will not get another delay, but you have the same delay until you're 28. If you study at the university, even if you finish the university before 28, you keep this postponement until you're 28. And regarding who is exempted from the military service, it is actually fathers of 3 children and more. So if you're a father, you already have 3 children, you don't have to go to the army. You can, but you don't have to. If you are sentenced by a court for like very serious crimes, you also don't go to the army. If you are
Maybe
if you're an orphan, also, if you are a widow man and your wife has passed away, and you have an underage child, you also don't have to go to the army. And 2 interesting stories are if you're a monk that is in the Aioros or in Jerusalem, and also if you are granted citizenship, an honorary citizenship, which is some cases like, who was it? Tom Hanks?
Yes, probably this one.
Tom Hanks has been granted a Greek citizenship, so of course he will not be called to enlist. He's also over 45 years old.
Oh wow!
So that's
I didn't know that he has Greek. Oh, so yeah, pretty interesting.
You also get a reduced duration if you have children, but these are the cases where you don't go to the army at all.
Oh, okay. So I have a small. Oh yeah, we have another question. The employer is obligatory to inform authorities about military status of the men in the company. Oh yeah, I can paraphrase a little bit. So we have new legislation in Russia. Our Russian legal entities are obliged to send some information about their employees to the military offices. It was quite often previously, maybe last 5-10 years, but now they Russian authorities added fines for legal entities, and it's quite big. So from the 1st of October, a lot of legal entities and some employees who are in charge of listing in making the list of employees went to the military office with all documents. So do you have the same situation with legal entities in Greece or not? Andres, please.
Well, no. Employers and companies are not obliged to inform the authorities about the military status of the people working in their company. Nevertheless, there is the penalty that if you have taken a medical exemption or you are a draft evader, you cannot work neither to the police nor to the fire department.
Oh, I understand it. Because
yeah, that's the penalty if you don't go to the army, actually, plus the fines and stuff. But no, the employers nowadays in Greece want you to have fulfilled military obligations, so you don't have to go out of the company and then come back. So it's just fine. Whatever you take, if you can take an I-5, you can do an alternative service. You can serve normally, but we don't want you to disrupt your working relationship with the company and then come back. So it's really employer to employee stuff.
So the state,
but it's actually it's actually a very, very terrible idea. So and it's very terrible news that we hear from.
Don't tell it to the Minister of Defense, please.
We wouldn't like to keep the copy pasting, but it's so you're essentially having companies snitching on their employees.
Yes,
they're forced to
and not only legal entities, but also universities, because they are also legal entities, and it's mandatory to send all information. And Russia has very good electronic system, so there are a lot of entities can send it via special state electronic system, and it works quite good. So okay.
Israel is like also, by the way.
Yeah, I would like, maybe it would be an opportunity for our movement to speak with some guys from Israel. I would be pleased. Okay, I think we a little bit run out of time, but it was very interesting dialogue, especially for me as a military lawyer and advocacy manager of the movement of conscientious objectors. I would like to thank you all, guys, to share your stories, because it's very difficult to find some guys with these strong principles, that principles on they rely on, and especially in the military service, because unfortunately a lot of countries are becoming more militarists quite nowadays. And I would like to also congratulate you on Teo, you on finishing your alternative service, Andres, also you on finishing, you and Nicholas. It was quite a fantastic story that you wasn't refused, but also you stand on the grounds of the pacifist grounds. Yeah. So okay, guys, I think we can now end our webinar. Thank you, our viewers. Thanks again
for hosting
to you.
us.
Yeah, I would like to stay in touch with you.
Yeah, definitely. I have also a proposition that we create something like an international bond with the Union of Conscientious Objectors here in Greece and Russia, and we can keep in contact.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of
information
information to send to you about Russia, and it would be
great
for me to ask you about some details, and of course to share it with our subscribers and our viewers. Okay, thank you all. I think we recorded it, and we will translate it into Russian for our non-English speaking viewers. Yeah, thank you, Teo.
Thank you very much, Artem, and thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.